Hey there, it's Anna from Anna and Tammy's Reading of the Night Watch, and it's the 12th. I'm reading part 12. I'm kind of chilly. It was not a terribly warm day today, so I'm wearing my scarf indoors, and my hair doesn't want to behave. Not that it ever does. So let's get to it. For a minute or two after Morphic Street went quiet, nothing moved and nothing happened. Then a coach came around the corner. It was a particularly fine one, drawn by 2 horses. Its lamps were torches, and as the coach bounced on the cobbles, the zigzagging flames seemed to trail for a moment in the air and appeared to have a smoky quality. Insofar as they revealed anything, these suggested that the coach had been done up in purple livery. It also seemed to be rather heavy on its wheels. It pulled to a halt next to a doorway. It pulled to a halt at the next doorway down from the one where Vimes had performed his arrest. Vimes, who thought he knew a lot about being a shadow, would have been surprised to see 2 figures step out of the doorway's darkness into the light of the torch. The coach door swung open. "Strange news, kind lady," said one of the shadows. "Very strange news, dearie," said the other shadow. They climbed up into the coach, which sped off. Vimes was impressed at the way the men reacted back at the watch house, despite the lack of any command from him. Wiglet and Scuts jumped down as soon as the wagon was in the yard and dragged the gates across. Inside, Colin and Waddy pulled the shutters across the windows. Waddy went into the armory and came out with an armful of crossbows. It was all done with speed and, for the men concerned, precision. Vimes nudged his younger self. "Make that cocoa, will you, kid?" he said. "I don't want to miss the show." He sat down at his desk and pulled his feet up as Colin locked the door and Waddy pulled the bar across. This is happening, he thought, but it didn't happen before. Not exactly like this. This time the Morphic Street mob did a runner. They weren't ambushed in their meeting. There wasn't a fight. The sight of all those coppers must have scared them rigid. They weren't much anyway, just sloganeers and skivers and Me-Tooists. The people who crowd behind the poor slob who's the spokesman shouting, "Yeah, right," and leg it up an alley when the law gets rough. But some had died in the ambush, and some had fought back, and one thing led, as always, to another. Except this time there was no ambush because some thick sergeant made too much noise. 2 different presents, one past, one future. I don't know what's going to happen next. However, I've got a damn good idea. "Well done, lads," he said, standing up. "You finish trapping us inside, and I'll go tell the old man what's happening." He heard the puzzled muttering behind him as he climbed the stairs. Captain Tilden was sitting at his desk staring at the wall. Vimes coughed a bit loudly and saluted. "Had a bit of—" he began, and Tilden turned his ashen face to him. He looked as though he had seen a ghost, and it had been in the mirror. "You've heard the news too?" "Sir?" "The riot up at Dolly's sister's," said Tilden. "It was only a couple of hours ago." I'm too close, Vimes thought, as the words sat in. All those things were just names that all seemed to happen at once. Dolly's sisters. Yeah, there was a mob of hotheads up there. "The lieutenant of the day watch called in one of the regiments," said Tilden, "which he was duly authorized to do, of course." "Which one?" said Vimes, for the look of the thing. The name was in the history books, after all. "Lord Venturi's medium dragoons, Sergeant. My old regiment." That's right, thought Vimes. The cavalry are highly trained at civilian crowd control. Everyone knows that. "And there were some accidental deaths." Vimes felt sorry for the man. In truth, it was never proved that anyone was given an order to ride people down. But did it matter? Horses pushing and people unable to get away because of the press of people behind them. It was too easy for small children to lose grip of a hand. "But in fairness, missiles were thrown at the officers, and one soldier was badly injured," said Tilden, as if reading the words off a card. "That's all right, then," Vimes thought. "What kind of missiles, sir?" "Fruit, I gather, although there may have been some stones as well." Vimes realized that Tilden's hand was shaking. "The riot was over the price of bread, I understand." "No, the protest was over the price of bread," said Vimes's inner voice. "The riot was what happens when you have panicking people trapped between idiots on horseback and other idiots shouting, 'Yeah, right,' and trying to push forward, and the whole thing in the charge of a fool advised by a maniac with a steel rule. "The feeling of the palace," said Tilden slowly, "is that revolutionary elements may attack the watchhouse." "Really, sir? Why?" "It's the sort of thing they do," said Tilden. "As a matter of fact, sir, the men are putting up shutters and—" "Do whatever you feel necessary, Sergeant," said Tilden, waving a hand with a scrawled letter on it. "We are told we must be mindful of the curfew regulations. That has been underlined." Vimes paused before answering. He'd bitten back the first answer. He contented himself with a "very well, sir," and left. The man wasn't a bad man, he knew. He must have been badly affected by the news to give such a stupid, dangerous order. Do what you feel necessary? Give an order like that to a man who's liable to panic when he sees a bunch of people waving their fists, and you get the Dolly Sisters massacre. He walked back down the stairs. The squad were standing around looking nervous. "Prisoner in the cells?" said Vimes. Corporal Cullen nodded. "Yes, sir, Sarge. Snowdy says Dolly Sisters—" "I know. Now here's what I feel is necessary. Take the shutters down, unbar the door, leave it open, and light all the lamps. Why isn't the blue lamp over the door lit?" "Dunno, Sarge, but what if—" "Get it lit, Corporal. And then you and Waddy go and stand and guard outside where you can be seen. You're friendly-looking local lads. Take your bells out, but I want to make this very clear. No swords, right?" "No swords?" Colin burst out. "But what if a bloody great mob comes around the corner and I'm not armed?" Vimes reached him in 2 swift strides and stood nose to nose. "And if you have got a sword, what will you do with it, eh? Against a bloody great mob? What do you want him to see? Now what I want him to see is Fatty Colin, decent lad, not too bright. I knew his dad. And there's old Waddy. He drinks at my pub. Because if they see just a couple of men in uniform with swords, you'll be in trouble. And if you draw those swords, you'll be in real trouble. And if by any chance, Corporal, you draw swords tonight without my order and survive, then you'll wish you hadn't done either, because you'll have to face me, see? And then you'll know what trouble is, because everything up there, up until then, will look like a bleeding day at the sodden seaside. Understand?" Fred Colin goggled at him. There was no other word for it. "Don't let my sugary sweet tones lead you to believe I'm not damn well giving you orders," said Vimes, turning away. "Vimes?" "Yes, Sarge?" said young Sam. "Have we got a saw in this place?" Snowdy stepped forward. "I've got a toolbox, Sarge." "Nails too?" "Yes, sir." "Right. Rip the door off my locker and hammer a lot of nails right through it, will you? Then lay it down on the upstairs landing, points up. I'll take the saw, 'cause I'm going to the privy." After the silence that followed, Corporal Cullen obviously felt he had to make a contribution. He cleared his throat and said, "If you've got a problem in that area, Sarge, Mrs. Cullen's got wonderful medicine. "I won't be long," said Vimes. In fact, it was 4 minutes. "All done," he said, returning to the sound of hammering from the locker room. "Come with me, Lance Constable. Time for a lesson in interrogation. Oh, and bring the toolbox." "Fred and Waddy don't like being outside," said Sam as they went down the stone steps. "They say, what if that bunch of unmentionables turn up?" "They needn't worry. Our friends at Cable Street are not front door kind of people." He pushed open the doors to the cells. The prisoner stood up and grabbed the bars. "Okay, they've come now. Now you let me out," he said. "Come on, and I'll put in a good word for you." "No one's come for you, sir," said Vimes. He locked the main door behind him and unlocked the cell. "It's been a busy time for them," he added. "Been a bit of a riot over at Dolly Sisters. A few deaths. Might be a while before they get around to you." The man eyed the toolbox that the Lance Constable was holding. It was only a flicker, but Vimes saw the moment of uncertainty. "I get it," said the prisoner. "Good cop, bad cop, eh?" "If you like," said Vimes, "but we're a bit short-staffed, so if I give you a cigarette, would you mind kicking yourself in the teeth?" "Look, this is a game, right?" said the prisoner. "You know I'm one of the particulars, and you're new in town and want to impress us. Well, you have. Big laugh all around. Ha-ha! Anyway, I was only on stakeout." "Yes, but that's not how it works, is it?" said Vimes. "Now we've got you, we can decide what you're guilty of. You know how it's done. Fancy a ginger beer?" The man's face froze. "You know," said Vimes, "it turns out that after the riot this evening, we've been warned to expect revolutionary attacks on the watch houses. Now, I personally wouldn't expect that. What I'd expect is a bunch of ordinary people turning up, you know, because they've heard what happened. But, and you can call me Mr. Suspicious if you like, I've got a feeling that there will be something a bit worse. You see, apparently we've got to be mindful of curfew regulations. What that means, I suppose, is that if we get people coming to complain about unarmed citizens being attacked by soldiers, which I personally would consider to be assault with a deadly weapon, we've got to arrest them. I find that rather... There was a commotion from upstairs. Vimes nodded to young Sam, who disappeared up the stairs. Now that my impressionable assistant has gone, said Vimes quietly, I'll add if any of your men get hurt tonight, I'll see to it for the rest of your life you scream at the sight of a bottle. I haven't done anything to you. You don't even know me. Yes, like I said, we're doing it your way, said Vimes. Sam reappeared in a hurry. Someone's fallen in the privy, he announced. They were climbing on the roof and had been sawn through and gave way. Must be one of those revolutionary elements, said Vimes, watching the prisoner's face. We've been warned about them. He says he's from Cable Street, Sarge. That's just the kind of thing I'd say if I was a revolutionary element, said Vimes. All right, let's take a look at him. Upstairs, the front door was still open. There were a few people outside, just visible in the lamplight. There was also Sergeant Knock inside, and he was not happy. Who said we open up like this, he was saying. It looks nasty out on those streets, very dangerous. I say we stay open, said Vimes, coming up the stairs. Is there a problem, Sergeant? Well, look, Sarge, I heard it on the way over. They're throwing stones at the Dimble Street house, said Knock, deflating. There's people in the streets, mobs. I hate to think what's happening downtown. So? We're coppers. We should be getting prepared. And you know what? I know my voices are terribly inconsistent for most of the characters, and they'll probably remain that way. I've got no idea what Knock sounded like the last time I read this. What, to bar the doors and listen to the stones rattle on the roof, said Vimes? Or maybe we should go out and arrest everyone. Any volunteers? No. I'll tell you what, Sergeant. If you want to do some coppering, you can go and arrest the man in the privy. Do him for breaking and entering. There was a scream from upstairs. Vimes glanced up. And I reckon if you go into the attic landing, you'll find there's a man who dropped through the skylight right onto a door full of nails that was accidentally left there, he went on. He looked at Knock's puzzled face. It's the Cable Street boys, Sergeant. They thought they could come down the roofs and scare the dumb brown jobs. Chuck 'em both in the cells. You're arresting unmentionables? No uniform, no badge, carrying weapons. Let's have a bit of law around here, shall we, said Vimes. Snouty, where's that Coco? We'll get into trouble, Knock shouted. Vimes let Knock wait until he'd lit a cigar. We're in trouble anyway, Winsborough, he said, shaking out the match. It's just a case of deciding what kind we want. Thanks, Snouty. He took the mug of cocoa from the jailer and nodded at Sam. Let's take a stroll outside, he said. He was aware of the sudden silence in the room, except for the whimpering coming from upstairs and the distant yelling from the privy. What are you all standing around for, gentlemen, he said. Want to ring your bells? Anyone fancy shouting that all's well? With those words hanging in the room all big and pink, Vimes stepped out into the evening air. There were people hanging around out there in little groups of 3 or 4, talking among themselves and occasionally turning to look at the watch house. Vimes sat down on the steps and took a sip of his cocoa. He might as well have dropped his breeches. The group opened up, became an audience. No man drinking a non-alcoholic chocolate beverage had ever been the center of so much attention. He'd been right. A closed door is an incitement to bravery. A man drinking from a mug under a light and apparently enjoying the cool night air was an incitement to pause. We're breaking curfew, you know, said a young man with a quick dart forward, dart back movement. Is that right? Said Vimes. Are you going to arrest us then? Not me, said Vimes cheerfully. I'm on my break. Yeah, said the man. He pointed to Colin and Waddy. They on their break too? They are now. Vimes half turned. Bruise up, lads. Off you go. No need to run. There's enough for everyone. And come back out when you've got it. When the sound of pounding boots had died away, Vimes turned back and smiled at the group. Again. So when do you come off your break? Said the man. Vimes paid him some extra attention. The stance was a giveaway. He was ready to fight, even though he didn't look like a fighter. If this were a barroom, the bartender would be taking the more expensive bottles off the shelf, because amateurs like that tended to spread the glass around. Ah, yes, and now he could see why the words barroom had occurred to him. There was a bottle sticking out of the man's pocket. He'd been drinking his defiance. Oh, around Thursday, I reckon, said Vimes, eyeing the bottle. There was laughter from somewhere in the growing crowd. Why Thursday? Said the drinker. Got my day off on Thursday. There were a few more laughs this time. When the tension is drawing out, it doesn't take much to snap it. I demand you arrest me, said the drinker. Come on, try it. You're not drunk enough, said Vimes. I should go home and sleep it off if I was you. The man's hand grasped the neck of his bottle. Here it comes, thought Vimes. By the look of it, the man has 1 chance in 5. Fortunately, the crowd wasn't too big yet. What you didn't need at a time like this was people at the back craning to see and asking what was going on. And the lit-up watchhouse was fully illuminating the lit-up man. "Friend, if you take my advice, you'll not consider that," said Vimes. He took another sip of his cocoa. It was only lukewarm now, but along with the cigar it meant that both his hands were occupied. That was important. He wasn't holding a weapon. No one could say afterwards that he had a weapon. "I'm no friend to you people," snapped the man, and smashed the bottle on the wall by the steps. The glass tinkled to the ground. Vimes watched the man's face, watched the expression change from drink-fueled anger to agonizing pain, watched the mouth open. The man swayed. Blood began to ooze from his fingers, and a low, thin animal sound escaped from between his teeth. That was the tableau under the light. Vimes sitting down with his hands full, the bleeding man several feet away. No fight, no one had touched anyone. He knew the way rumor worked, and he wanted this picture to fix itself in people's minds. There was even ash still on the cigar. He stayed very still for a few seconds, and then stood up, all concern. "Come on, one of you help me, will you?" he said, tugging off his breastplate and the chainmail shirt underneath it. He grabbed his shirt sleeve and tore off a long strip. A couple of men, jerked into action by the voice of command, steadied the man who was dripping blood. One of them reached for the hand. "Leave it," Vimes commanded, tightening the strip around the man's unresisting wrist. "He's got a handful of broken glass. Lay him down as gently as you can before he falls over, but don't touch nothing until I've got this tourniquet on. Sam, go into the stable and pinch Marilyn's blanket for the boy. Anyone here know Dr. Lon? Speak up." Someone among the odd bystanders volunteered that they did and was sent running for him. Vimes was aware of the circle watching him. A lot of the watchmen were peering around the doorway now. "Saw this happen once," he said aloud, adding mentally, in 10 years' time. "It was in a bar fight. Man grabbed a bottle, didn't know how to smash it, ended up with a handful of shards, and the other guy reached down and squeezed." There was a satisfying groan from the crowd. "Anyone who knows this man is?" he said. "Come on, someone must." A voice in the crowd volunteered that the man could well be Joss Gaffey, an apprentice shoemaker from New Cobblers. "Let's hope we can save his hand then," said Vimes. "I need a new pair of boots." It wasn't funny at all, but it got another one of those laughs, the ones people laugh out of sheer fright and nervousness. Then the crowd parted as Lon came through. "Ah," he said, kneeling down by Gaffey. "You know, I don't know why I own a bed. Trained bottle fighter?" "Yes." "Looks like you've done the right things, but I need a light and a table," said Lon. Can your men take him into the watchhouse?" Vimes had hoped it wouldn't come to that. Oh well, you had to make the best of it. He pointed randomly at fingers in the crowd. "You and you and you and you too, young lady," he said. "You can help Fred and Waddy take this young man inside, okay? And you're to stop with him, and we'll leave the doors open, right? All you lot out here will know what's going on. We've got no secrets here. Everyone understand?" "Yeah, but you're a copper," a voice began. Vimes started forward and hauled a frightened young man out of the crowd by his shirt. "Yeah, I am," he said. "And see this lad over here? He's a copper, too. His name's Sam Vimes. He lives in Cockville Street with his mum. And that's Fred Colin, just got married, a couple of rooms in Old Cobblers. And Exhibit C there is Waddy. Everyone around here knows Waddy. Billy Wiglet there. He was born in this street. Have I asked you your name?" "No," the man mumbled. "That's because I don't care who you are," said Vimes, letting the man go and looking around the crowd. "Listen to me, all you. My name's John Keel. No one gets taken into this watchhouse without me knowing why. You're all here as witnesses. Those of you I pointed out, you come on inside to see fair play all round. Do the rest of you want to hang around to see what happens to Gappy? Fine, I'll get Snouty to bring out some cocoa, or you can go home. It's a cold night. You ought to be in your beds. I know I'd like to be in mine. And yes, we do know about Dolly's sisters, and we don't like it any more than you do. And we've heard about Dimwell Street, and we don't like that either. And that's all I've got to say tonight. Now, anyone who still wants to take a swing at a copper can step right up if they want to. I've got my uniform off. We'll have a go here and now, fair and square, in front of everyone. Anyone?" Something brushed his shoulder and clattered on the watchhouse steps. There was the sound of slipping tiles from the roof, and on the other side a man fell off the roof into the pool of light. There were gasps from the crowd and 1 or 2 short screams. "Looks like you got a volunteer," said someone. There was the horrible, nervous sniggering again. The crowd parted to let Vimes view the sudden arrival. The man was dead. If he hadn't been when he fell off the roof, he was after he'd hit the ground, because no neck normally looked like that. The crossbow had fallen down with him. Excuse me. Vimes remembered the draft across his shoulders and went back to the watchhouse steps. It didn't take long to find the arrow, which had broken into several pieces. "Anyone know this man?" he said. The crowd, even those members of it who hadn't been able to get a good look at the fallen bowman, indicated definite ignorance. Vimes went through the man's pockets. Every single one was empty, which was all the evidence of identification he needed. "Looks like it's going to be a long night," he said, signaling to Colin to take the body inside too. "I've got to get on with my work, ladies and gentlemen. If anyone wants to stay, and frankly I'll be obliged if you do, I'll send some lads out to build a fire. Thank you for your patience." He picked up his mail and breastplate and went back inside. What are they doing?" he said to Sam without turning round. "Some of them are wandering off, but most of them are standing around, Sarge," said Sam, peering around the door. "Sarge, one of them really shot at you." "Really? Who says the man on the roof was any one of them? That's an expensive bow. And he didn't have anything in his pockets. Nothing. Not so much as a used hanky." "Very odd, Sarge," said Sam loyally. "Especially since I was expecting a piece of paper saying something like, 'I am definitely a member of a revolutionary cadre. Trust me on this,'" said Vimes, looking carefully at the corpse. "Yes, that'd tell us he's a revolutionary, all right," said Sam. Vimes sighed and stared at the wall a moment. Then he said, "Anyone notice anything about his bow?" "It's the new Bolsover A7, said Colin. Not a bad bow, Sarge. Not an assassin's weapon, though." "That's true," said Vimes, and twisted the dead man's head so they could see the tip of the little metal dart behind his ear. "But this is. Fred, you know everyone. Where can I get some ginger beer this time of night?" "Ginger beer, Sarge?" "Yes, Fred." "Why do—" "Don't ask, Fred. Just get a half-dozen bottles, all right?" Vimes turned to the desk on which, surrounded by a fascinated crowd, Dr. Alon was working on the stricken Gappy. "How's it going?" said Vimes, pushing through. "Slower than it'd go if people got out of the damn light," said Lon, carefully moving his tweezers to a mug by Gappy's hand and dropping a bloody fragment of glass therein. "I've seen worse on a Friday night. He'll keep the use of his fingers, if that's what you want to know. He just won't be making any shoes for a while. Well done." There was general crowd approval. Vimes looked round at the people and at the coppers. There were one or two muted conversations going on. He heard phrases like "bad business" and "they say that" above the general noise. He'd played the cards well enough. Most of the lads here lived within a street or two. It was one thing to have a go at faceless bastards in uniform, but quite another to throw stones at old Fred Colin or old Waddy or old Billy Wiglet, who you'd known since you were 2 years old and played dead rat conkers with in the gutter. Lon put the tweezers down and pinched the bridge of his nose. "That's it," he said wearily. "A bit of stitching and he'll be fine." "And there's some others I need you to take a look at," said Vimes. "You know, that comes as no surprise," said the doctor. "One's got holes in his feet, one dropped through the privy roof, and has got a twisted leg, and one's dead." "I don't think I can do much about the dead one," said the doctor. "How do you know he's dead? I realize I may regret asking that question." "He's got a broken neck from falling off a roof, and I reckon he fell off because he got a steel crossbow bolt in his brain." "Ah, that sounds like dead if you want my medical opinion. Did you do it?" "No." "Well, you're a busy man, Sergeant. You can't be everywhere." The doctor's face cracked into a grin when he saw Vimes go red, and he walked over to the corpse. "Yes, I'd say that life is definitely extinct," he said. "And—" "I want you to write that down, please, on paper, with official-sounding words like contusion and abrasions. I want you to write that down, and I want you to write down the time that you found he was dead. And if you don't mind, 2 lads will take you down to look at the other 2. And after you've treated them, thank you, I'd like to sign another piece of paper saying you did and I called you in. 2 copies of everything, please." "All right. Dare I ask why?" "I don't want anyone to say I did it." "Why should anyone say that? You told me he fell off a roof." "These are suspicious times, Doctor. Ah, here's Fred. Any luck?" Corporal Colin was carrying a box. He put it down on the desk with a grunt. "Old Mrs. Arbiter didn't like being knocked up in the middle of the night," he announced. "I had to give her $1." Vimes didn't dare look at Lon's face. "Really?" he said, as innocently as possible. "And you got the ginger beer?" 6 pints of her best stuff," said Colin. "There's 3 pence back on the bottles, by the way. And, he shuffled uneasily. I heard they set fire to Watch House at Dolly's sister, Sarge. It's very bad up at Knapp Hill, too. And the Chitling Street house got all its windows broken up. At the Leastgate house, some of the lads went out to stop kids throwing stones, and one of them drew a sword, Sarge. And he'll probably live, Sarge." Dr. Lund looked about him at the crowded office where people were still talking. Snowdy was going round with a tray of cocoa. Outside in the street, some of the watchmen were standing round a makeshift fire with the remnants of the crowd. Well, I must say I'm impressed, he said. Sounds like you're the only watch house not under siege tonight. I don't want to know how you did it. Luck played a part, said Vimes, and I've got 3 men who carry no personal identification whatsoever in the cells, and another anonymous would-be assassin who's recently been assassinated. Quite a problem, said Lon. Now me, I just have to deal with simple mysteries like what the rash means. I intend to solve mine quite quickly, said Vimes. Okay, and Tanya, we'll see you tomorrow. Bye.